Yes, welcome into Sports Bit. Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy, Friday, April 15th. We got the deep dive NBA playoff betting 101, finals predictions, first round upsets, and the play of the day. We look to make it 3 in a row. No bad beats, no bad bets. It's all playoffs all the time. And Teddy, if you look at the future odds here at the courtesy of the Westgate in Las Vegas, does anything jump out at you for looking at some value in long shots?
Well, I mean, obviously, the best teams, at least the two best teams in the NBA, the Warriors and the Spurs, are priced appropriately. And, of course, the Cavs, as a prohibitive favorite to come out of the East, are probably priced appropriately. Now, I'm not a real Cleveland believer, as you know. But I think the teams in the West underneath the two favorites, Oklahoma City at 16-1, the Clippers at 30-1, those two really stand out to me. We're not talking mediocre teams. We're talking about two of the four best teams in the NBA, according to my numbers, being priced in a range that gives them some value. So, yeah, Thunder, Clippers. That's the two on this future board I'd be looking at, Paul. What about you?
How about the Heat? A couple weeks ago, they played the Cavs at home and spanked them. And I'm not that high on Toronto if they meet them in the second round because Toronto's had their problems, especially what happened last year. Now, can they beat Golden State or San Antonio? Hell no. But it's a good opportunity to hedge, and maybe they can win the East.
Yeah, see, I want a team that can win it all. I want something that can, and I'm not worried about hedging. I want a team that can win a championship. I think the West is going to win the title this year. Like I said, my top four power-rated teams all in the Western Conference. So I'm looking for a team I don't have to hedge should they get to the finals. That'd be the Thunder or the Clips.
All right, let's start it, Teddy. We'll start Saturday in tip-off order. Saturday morning on the West Coast, Pacers and the Raptors series price. Toronto minus 370. Game 1, Raptors 6.5, total of 195. Now, the pressure is on Lowry and also the Raptors. They have lost the last 5 times in the first round, including what happened last year when they were swept by the Wizards and went to Washington down 0-2 and absolutely quit on that series. Defense is a problem. 105 points per 100 possessions the Raptors allowed. But Teddy, the pressure, going back to the pressure on Lowry, can this guy finally get something done in the postseason?
Well, look at the numbers. I mean, Kyle Lowry as a playoff starter, 3-8 straight up, 2-8-1 against the spread. Those are not good numbers. Now, you look at some of the advanced metric numbers, the 538 from 538.com, their ELO numbers say Toronto's a 25% chance to reach the finals. The Cavs are only 35%. They say Toronto and Cleveland are neck and neck. I don't know that I necessarily buy that, but for the purposes of this series, I mean, look, this is the first Pacers playoff series since the 2014 Eastern Conference Finals. And we think of this team and that team as related. They're not really. You have Paul George and George Hill, the only key rotation players left on this team from just 2 years ago. Ian Mahinmi got a couple of minutes off the bench that year, but Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, David West, C.J. Watson, Chris Copeland, Louis Scola, all key contributors for that team, they're all gone. Now, the Pacers did go 6-1 against the spread as a dog of +6 or higher this year, talking about game 1. Surprised me they were only dogs that big 7 times, but then again, you start thinking about the Eastern Conference, and nobody can be laying 7 in the East except for Cleveland when they play a team like Indiana.
All right, Houston and Golden State. Series price minus 7,000. In game 1, Golden State 13, 225 the total. You're going to get an angry and pissed off Golden State team. They're tired of hearing about the old timers and get off my lawn guy, but also they're not happy with the Saturday afternoon start. They don't like that. And also, if they face the Clippers in the second round, Doc ran his mouth about they were lucky last year. So that's something to consider if they meet the Clippers in the second round. But when you look at Houston, they allowed more points than they scored per 100 possessions. But will Harden be focused on winning the series, Teddy, or winning his one-on-one matchup against Curry?
Well, look, remember, these two teams met in the playoffs last year. And even though Golden State got the better of it, James Harden, man, I mean, he might have won the battle against Steph Curry the first part of that series. The first 4 games, 128 points, 33 rebounds, 27 assists. But then, in the elimination game, first 4, he did well. The 5th game against Steph Curry, let's see. Your team's got to win. 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Oh, and 12 turnovers in that game 5. He shot 2 for 11 in that game. Might have been the single worst night of his professional career. Now, Houston, they're coming out like a freight train down the stretch, right? The Rockets played good basketball last week of the season, yeah. And then you look who they beat. Well, they beat the Lakers, they beat the T-Wolves, and they beat the Kings, sitting everybody to make the playoffs. Golden State, a little bit of a different animal compared to those teams. The Warriors won. And we don't talk a lot about what happened in the regular season. Regular season meetings do not correlate in any way with the postseason. That being said, when they were all blowouts, I need to mention it. And Golden State did win 3 of the 4 regular season meetings by 14 or more. Warriors just 2-6 against the spread down the stretch, laying 10 or higher. And remember, they laid 11.5 to Boston in the game they lost when the Celtics were struggling and on the second night of back-to-backs. They laid 12.5 to the Wizards, who didn't even make the playoffs. These are just in the last week or two. Now they're laying more than that to Houston. No bargains in this postseason with the Golden State Warriors. I think there's going to be more money betting against Golden State on a game-by-game basis than there will be actually backing them.
Boston and Atlanta, series price, Hawks $1.60, Atlanta 5, 204.5 in game 1. If defense wins in the playoffs, and there's no one better at the end of the season than the Hawks, you look at this graphic, post-All-Star break defense, points per 100 possessions, points allowed. Atlanta number 1, followed by San Antonio and Utah. And Boston actually struggled to shoot it, so maybe a favorable matchup for the Hawks in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, the Celtics matched up better with Miami. They matched up better with Charlotte. This is the one matchup they probably didn't want to face. That being said, Atlanta does have some issues. You know, they don't get to the free throw line. They don't grab offensive rebounds. They don't really score that much. Certainly not when we're talking about compared to recent champions. Atlanta well below the last 10 NBA champions in terms of points per 100 possessions. Fascinating series. I think this is going to be a fun one. And in series like this, again, there aren't a whole lot of potential upsets in the first round. This is certainly one of them.
Yes, finishing out Saturday night, Dallas and OKC. Thunder minus 3,000. Game 1, OKC 12, 209.5. We know they have Durant and Westbrook, but the key to this team was what they did on the boards, Teddy.
Oh, my God. I mean, look at the graphic. Now, note the gap here between 1 and 2. Oklahoma City, number 1. They grabbed 54.7% of the rebounds. Number 2 is Detroit, 52.1. Dallas is number 26, and they're 48.5. So the difference between 1 and 2 almost as big as the difference between 2 and 26. So this Thunder ability to rebound and ability to rebound at an elite level is going to help them in this postseason. It really will. Now, they're not a great defensive team. You know, when we talk about, again, eventual champions, the worst defensive performance from any champ over the last 10 years, the 2009 Lakers, they allowed 104.7 points per 100 possession. This year's Thunder team allowed 105.6. So that doesn't bode well for their chances to win at all necessarily. That being said, I think OKC is better than the numbers are going to show. And here in the first round against Dallas, where we've seen the Mavericks play this slow down style, I'll tell you what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to bet unders early on in this series, and I think the market's going to go with me because Dallas, they don't want to run and gun with OKC, and I think there may be, you know, they've been pretty good at controlling pace down the stretch. I think they have a decent chance to force Oklahoma City to play at their pace, which means unders are going to be cashing.
Yes, I agree with that one. I was shocked, just like you were, by the Game 1 total. That's Saturday. Sunday's up next, and we'll get to NBA playoff betting 101 and our picks in the deep dive, plus the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Back on SportsBit, time for the game Sunday. We start with Detroit and Cleveland. Cleveland minus 3,000, 10.5, 201.5 for Game 1. Teddy, how about the take back here on the Pistons, 16-1 to win a series?
Yeah, and I mean, do you think the Pistons are 16-1? You know, I'd make their odds a little bit longer than that, personally. But obviously, in no rush to lay 30 to win $1 with Cleveland. But it's definitely worth noting right here, Paul, the difference between one sportsbook and the next when it comes to A, the prices being offered on the favorite and the underdog, and B, the spread between the two prices, meaning the house take back. Looking at my live odds screen right now, I'm seeing Cleveland in one shop. They're minus 2,500. The takeback's plus 900 on Detroit. Another shop, they're minus 2,000. The takeback's plus 1,000. Another shop, it's minus 2,800. Takeback plus 1,400. There is dramatic variance between one sportsbook and the next, and it behooves you. Again, I can't help you guys win if you don't want to help yourselves. Get a good number when you're betting these futures. Series prices makes an enormous difference. Would you rather get plus 900 or plus 1600? You know what I mean? They're both available. All you have to do is make a bet at the right book to get the best number. So,
yep, amen to that. Detroit, like Houston, they also allowed more points than they scored per 100 possessions. Cleveland, the past 10 years, only one team that won the title shot less than 46% went on to win the title. That was the Lakers. This year, Cavs, 46%. Some are saying this is year 2 of the big 3, Teddy. Well, actually, I would say it's year 1 because of the injuries that occurred in the postseason last year.
Well, yeah. I mean, last year, the big 3 played 2 games together, and not even. They played 1 game, and then Love got injured, the first quarter of the second game? So they have a grand total of 2 games of playoff experience as a group. And then Irving wasn't anything last year. He was a shell of himself during the postseason. Now, during most of the regular season this year, they were healthy. But to call this team seasoned together as a playoff-tested squad, individually they've been playoff-tested, not as a group altogether, Paul. Not this team.
Yeah, to Charlotte and Miami. Miami.
Well, hang on. I got more on
You got
this.
more? All right, go ahead.
I got one more. You know, and I never call a guy. I try not to call guys
yes,
out.
okay.
I have to call out Kevin Pelton from his ESPN article. First of all, his metrics gave Detroit a 28% chance to win the series. Okay, Detroit doesn't have a 28% chance to win this series. So, if your metrics are telling you that, you have bad metrics, and you should reanalyze your math. Then the second thing is that he said that just made me nuts is that, well, here's a quote. The Pistons' chances are inflated slightly by winning the regular season finale between these two teams, who both rested their starters. The regular season finale, game 82, a couple of days ago, was the most meaningless game in the entire world. What do we call it, a flat tire of a game?
Come on. Yeah.
The fact that those are going to affect your numbers and your percentage chances of anybody winning a playoff series based on what happened in that meaningless game between the backups to the backups, you know, again, it's bad math. It's bad thought process. Sorry, Kevin Pelton. I did not agree with your article on ESPN.
All right, now to Charlotte, Miami. Series price, Heat $1.45, 4.5, 202 the total in game 1. Teddy can Wade can just snap his fingers and he's ready and shifts to playoff mode. What do we think and say about the Hornets?
Well, I mean, Dwayne Wade has more playoff starts than the entire Hornets roster. So there's something to be said for experience. Of course, Dwayne Wade has all of that mileage on his body from all of those playoff starts. We saw it in game number 82 at Boston when the Heat blew that 26-point lead. And, of course, the betting markets are saying this is the most likely first-round upset. Atlanta-Boston's a close second. Everyone else is at minus 350 or higher. So the markets are saying the untested team is live against the tested one. Now, Charlotte is in their point spread sweet spot when it comes to game 1. They're 14-6 this year as a dog in that +1 to +6 range. But it's also Miami's sweet spot. They're 22-12 against the spread as chalk from -1 to -6. So it's sweet spot against sweet spot when it comes to game number 1. Worth noting, Paul, the last thing I'm going to say on this, I referenced the 538.com, the advanced metric ELO numbers. They give Charlotte a better chance to reach the finals than Miami. That big 3 of Miami, all it is an aging Wade. It's not Bosch. It's not James. Now it's Whiteside and Deng and Dragic and an aging Wade. I'm not that bullish on this year's Heat.
I can't believe that. I can't believe the series price. I love Miami in this one. They're tough at home, and Charlotte, 5th worst field goal percentage in the league. I think Miami's going to win this series. To Memphis and San Antonio, Spurs minus 10,000. 15.5, 190 the total in game 1. Randolph, the only go-to vet that the Grizzlies have, but the Spurs cover that, guard it better than anyone else in the league.
Yeah, they sure do. You look at the graph right here. Defense versus 2-point shots. The Hawks, number 1. The Spurs, number 2. Worth noting, Budenholzer in Atlanta was a Popovich assistant for about 15 years before he got that Hawks job. So the defensive mentality in San Antonio has been preeminent throughout the entire Popovich era. No different this season. But the question is whether the Grizzlies can make up for it from long range. Memphis, well, historically they've been a bad three-point shooting team, and guess what? This year, they're a bad three-point shooting team. Number 27 in the NBA in made three-pointers. Number 29 in the NBA in three-point shooting percentage. So you can't make two-pointers against San Antonio. You can't make three-pointers against San Antonio. And oh, by the way, the Grizzlies, A, their defense is well below league average. And B, they've sent opponents to the line at the highest rate in the league, meaning they commit more fouls per possession than anybody in the NBA. Memphis ain't winning this series. Memphis isn't winning a game in this series. The only question is what type of margins they're going to lose by.
Memphis is going to have to change the way they play. You can't survive in today's NBA if you can't shoot the three. You look what happened last year. The 4 teams that made the conference finals were top 4, all the best teams in three-point shooting in the association. This should be
Yeah, but the Grizzlies were riddled with injuries.
Well, I'm saying last 2 years, though. It was the same way last year,
they got a bunch
too.
of guys that were supposed to be hitting threes, and they all got hurt. Every one of them.
Same way last year, too. Yeah, understood about this season, though. This should be entertaining. Blazers, Clippers. Clippers minus 360, 380. Depends where you shop. Game 1, 8, 207.5. Is Blake back in shape? Is he ready to go for the playoffs? You look at this graphic, the 5 games, 123 minutes, his field goal percentage, he only shot 40%, Teddy.
Yeah, and again, if you remember, we read some quotes before Blake Griffin got back from Doc Rivers when he first got into practice. And Doc Rivers is like, I'm worried about his conditioning. He's not in game shape yet. And obviously, if he only played more than 25 minutes once since coming back in those 5 games, he's still not in game shape. Of course, he hasn't played a minute away from the Staples Center since December 19th. But the Blazers, they're not, I mean, there's a disparity between these two teams. I personally look at the Clips right now, and I say this is the most undervalued commodity in the postseason. Why? They're playing defense at an elite level. They've been doing it for the last month, and their season-long numbers don't show it. Now, the Clips are bad at grabbing rebounds. Portland has the 3rd highest offensive rebounding rate in the NBA. Advantage Trailblazers, but I think there's a class difference here. I really do. And of course, Portland knocked out in the 5 games in the first 5-game series in the first round last year. Their chemistry crumbled with Aldridge on his way out. But even dating back to the previous season, we're talking about a squad that is 2-11 with 1 push in their last 14 playoff games against the spread. And that is an ancient history. That's the Terry Stotts era. Love them in the regular season. Don't love them in the postseason.
Here's a recipe for disaster. Blazers, 9th most points allowed per 100 possessions and 4th highest rate of three-point shots. You can't guard the 3, and you give up a ton of three-pointers. The Clippers can bury you, and it could be a short series for the Blazers. Now, they'll do it with the breakdowns of the games. Up next, NBA Playoff Betting 101, a first-round upset pick, our finals pick, and the play of the days. We look to make it 3 in a row on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. All right, here we go. NBA Playoff Betting 101. Everyone talks about, a lot of people talk about the zigzag theory. You're not making money if you do. Teddy, explain the zigzag theory.
Okay, yeah, and this is one of these theories that's been around for NBA playoff betting for many, many years. And the theory is very simple, and it makes sense, which is why it's been around as long as it has. The theory says you bet on the team that just lost their last playoff game. So there's no plays for game 1. Then in game 2, you play all the game 1 losers. In game 3, you play all the game 2 losers, so on and so forth. Expecting the zigzag back and forth. The team that just won is going to take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, be a little overconfident. The team that just lost is going to be hungry and play harder. And the zigzag theory was a moneymaker. In the 1990s, you could definitely make money betting the zigzag theory. Early in the 2000s, you definitely could. For the last decade, if you blindly bet the zigzag, you've lost. It's cost you money. But there, again, the data that people said with the 20-year sample size and the 30-year sample size, look at how great the zigzag theory is. It's worthless. It's useless. It will cost you money, especially in the non-competitive series. And here in round 1, what do we have? 5 non-competitive series, at least 4, priced with the favorite is there's 4 priced with the favorite higher than 10-1. The non-competitive series, the zigzag doesn't make you any money, and the zigzag theory as a whole. Again, if you read around on the internet, you're going to find this stuff all over the place. It's garbage. Not going to make you money.
All right, so you're losing money. It's total shit. What that doesn't work. What does work?
I got two theories that work in the NBA playoffs. And the first one I'm going to call the mispriced teams theory. That means that when a team comes into the postseason, they've got a power rating, and their opponent has a power rating. And if one of those two power ratings is wrong at the beginning of the series, it's going to be wrong throughout the entirety of that series. And every year we see it. A team comes into the postseason, and all of a sudden they go, 4-1 against the spread in the first series, and then, cover the next three in the second series, and everyone's like, wow, where'd they come from? They were just mispriced to start. And similarly, you're going to see teams that are going to be point spread disaster areas that are priced in the wrong range. You may not know, and I certainly don't know. I'm not willing to say, oh, this team's way mispriced, that team's way mispriced. We're going to watch like a hawk all weekend long. Come Monday, we're going to have some theories, and those are going to be some teams we're going to be betting on and against over the course of the next couple of weeks. But remember, the markets themselves do not adjust once the series begins. Hence, a team that's priced wrong at the beginning will be priced wrong all the way through.
Are there some teams that don't really have a home court advantage?
Well, this is the other thing that I think is very much a realistic moneymaker in the NBA playoffs, and that is that the home court advantage lessens. The home court advantage is worth something early in the series. Game 1, it's worth something. Game 2, it's worth less. Game 3, the markets really overvalue it a lot. They love the 0-2 team going home. They always take money in Game 3. But as you get particularly Games 4, Games 5, and Game 6, in those 3 games in a series, the home court is worth less and less and less. And if the markets are still giving 3, 3.5, sometimes I see 4 points for a home court for a Game 5 or a Game 6, are you kidding me? The opponents have already played each other a bunch of times. They know each other really well. They've already played on the opposing floor a couple of times. They're fairly evenly matched teams. That's why it's a series that's going to 5 and 6 and 7. The home court's, again, worth less as the series progresses until Game 7, and then Game 7 they're worth significantly more again.
It's something everyone wants to talk about. Everyone that they have been talking about, the Bulls and the Warriors, the 72-win Bulls and the 73-win Warriors. We made fun of Pippen, his comments about they'd sweep them. Scotty, you never swept anybody in the finals, so what are you talking about that you'd run through the Warriors? Teddy, what do you think the point spread would be if the 72-win Bulls matched up with the 73-win Warriors?
I think the Bulls are chalk. In fact, I'm convinced the Bulls are chalk. Simply because in that era, there wasn't a soul alive who believed that the Bulls weren't the best team that they've ever seen. Every single, because they were. I mean, they were the best team any of us had ever seen. You had 3 Hall of Famers on that team. Sorry, Golden State. Steph Curry isn't even a Hall of Famer yet. Right now, you have none. And at that point, Chicago already had 3 titles under their belt. Golden State has 1 title under their belt, and that title came last year when they faced 4 different teams with an injured point guard on the way to their NBA title. So all of those factors together say, to me, Chicago's going to be the chalk. I would make it 2.5, 3, maybe somewhere in that range on a neutral floor. What would you make the number, Paul?
I think it depends what. I know it's an interesting discussion. It depends what rules we're using. I mean, if you play today, you can't touch these Golden State guys, and that is a dynamite home court advantage. If you go back in the 90s when you could maul people, then I think the Bulls are a bigger favorite.
Yeah, you might be right. And so we'll split the rules in between and play it in like 2007 rules.
Yeah, I'd still give. Well, I think you go the Bulls because of the Jordan factor.
Yeah. Bulls will be chalk. There's no question. The only question is how much.
All right, give me a first round upset.
Gee, honestly, I think all 4 Western Conference favorites are going to survive in advance. In the East, Indiana could beat Toronto.
Yeah.
Boston could beat Atlanta, but I'm going to give the one just to piss you off. How about Charlotte over Miami? You wanted to use Miami as play of the day.
Yes,
I said
no
way. Charlotte, I'll call them the live dog. What about you?
I can't. That surprises me. I'm going to go with Indiana. I know it's a 2-7 matchup, but again, all the pressure is on Toronto in this one. And watch out if Indiana steals one early on the road. Then we ran down all the numbers with Lowry. Again, all these early exits, the last 5 times they made the playoffs, can't get out of the first round. And it'll be on their mind what happened last year with the no-show against the Wizards. Juicy price. Why not throw out the Pacers there? All right, who are you picking to make the finals?
How about this? All right, I don't want to pick the chalky version. Everyone's going to have Golden State and Cleveland. And if Golden State plays Cleveland in the finals, we get a rematch, so be it. I'm going to step out a little bit. Let's call Oklahoma City coming out of the West. That means that they beat San Antonio and Golden State, mind you. Okay, not one, both. And I'll say they're going to play let's call it the winner of the Boston-Atlanta series. I think that team's going to knock off the Cavs. So is that I'm giving 3 teams to the finals. Is that fair? Who are you going to go with? Let me guess. Golden State against the Cavs.
You're out of your mind with that. Jesus, come on. OKC. Well,
I'm out of my mind with a team with 2 of the 5 best players in the league and a rebounding advantage that nobody else can match. Yeah, I'm out of my mind.
They led
no
the
chance,
league.
Oklahoma City.
Hey, coaching mismatch, turnovers. They don't take care of the ball in all the blown fourth quarter leads. And even if they get past San Antonio, they're going to meet Golden State. They're going to be worn out.
They're going to be confident.
Get out of here. All right. Well, you know what? I am going chalk. You're going to laugh at me. But I looked this up. Last 3 years in the finals, the 1 seed played the 2 seed. And then you had a 2 and a 2, a 2 and a 3, a 1 and a 4, a 1 and a 3, a 2 and a 3, a 2 and a 4, a 2 and a 2. So the 1 year I skipped, 2008. So for the first time since 2008, a 1 seed will play a 1 seed. As much as I want to pick against the Cavs, I can't do it. I like how LeBron played down the stretch. A rematch of last year. I agree with Brian Mahoney. Cavs and the Warriors in the NBA Finals. All right. Money time. Winner yesterday with the Rangers. Felt good. Let's make it 3 in a row. Teddy, where we're going? Series price here.
Yeah, let's take the LA Clippers to knock off the Portland Trailblazers. Now look, Doc Rivers and Chris Paul, over the last 2 years, let's see, 2 years ago they beat the Warriors in the playoffs. Last year they beat the Spurs in the playoffs. That's the last 2 NBA champs, isn't it? That's a place the Trailblazers have never been, and they're not ready for yet. Clippers are cheap. I think they are the single most undervalued commodity to open up the postseason. This team's playing defense. They got a healthy Griffin. The bench, head and shoulders ahead of where it was last year. They're better than Portland. Clippers, minus 360. That is a value-laden price. Give me the Clips to win the series.
They are better than the Blazers. Yes, it should be entertaining and a lot of points in that one. And, looking ahead, we could have some great matchups in the second round. Excellent job, Teddy. That was a lot of fun. This will be up all weekend. Check it out. Tell your friends, NBA Playoffs edition. We're back Monday to recap everything. Have a good weekend. And we'll see you Monday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.